Thank you. First of all, before I start, I wanted to acknowledge the territory of the Okanagan Indian Band for allowing me here. But I also like to, I'm honored to be here just to give a presentation on the Nisga'a Nation. Basically how I want to start, I want to talk about the Nisga'a Nation. And I also want to talk about some of the new legislation, some of our acts that we have in place, our land base, our population. We're industry driven, we're mineral rich. But I also have my SFU Community Economic Development certification. I'm part of their alumni. My oldest daughter is actually in UBC Okanagan. She's finished off her third year in forensic psychology. And my younger daughter, she's finishing off grade 12. But anyway, I'll get right into it. Nisga'a Nation, we're open for business. That's what's driving us now. Our door is always open, and open for business is our new acronym. Our land base, the map never really showed up too much. It's PDF, but I'll just explain it to you. We're a self-governing treaty nation. Our treaty was ratified in May of 2000. And if you ever drive up our territory up the Nass Valley in northwestern British Columbia, you'll come to a highway called Nisga'a Highway 113. The reason why they call it 113 is that it took 113 years for our forefathers and stuff like that to have the treaty ratified. In our treaty, we own 2,220 kilometers, square kilometers as our land base, and so we outrightly own it. So basically that land base gives us a whole new opportunity in northwestern BC to do what we want, because we control it, we own it, and we can develop it. But we're in northwestern British Columbia. And our Nass area, because of Chapter 11 of the treaty, because of our Nass area is 26,000 square kilometers. It's almost the size of Vancouver Island. So it gives us a huge opportunity to develop our IBAs and member agreements with industry that are way north of us. Because currently we also, further north of the Nass area, we have an MOU with the Tahltan First Nation. And to the east of us is the Nisga'a Nation, and to the south of us is the Tsimshian First Nation. And then on the west side, we buffer up to the Alaskan border. Our population is over about 7,200 people. Even though a lot of our elders are passing on, there's younger people and stuff like that, and new babies born. So the population's always held up there. The good thing behind our, with our population, 51% is 29 and under, which is huge because when we look at our labor force, stuff like that. The governing body for the Nisga'a Nation is Nisga'a Nation. It's based out of New Iyanch. And I have the luxury because my house was built in '99, and it takes me 1 minute to commute out my back. But sometimes it's not the best thing because when you're trying to take elective leave and stuff like that, then you just got to make sure that your bosses aren't looking. And there are 4 Nisga'a villages and 3 urban Nisga'a societies. When you look at the 3 urban Nisga'a societies, they're fully incorporated. They're based in Terrace, Prince Rupert, and Vancouver. Terrace, when you look at it, has a population of the Nisga'a about 1,400, because we tag Prince George and Kitimat. And Prince Rupert has about 1,600 between Prince Rupert and Port Ed. In Vancouver, It tags Surrey and Vancouver Island, and there's about 1,100 Nisga'a that live down there. So our high population's outside. So only 35% live in the 4 Nisga'a villages. And because of our own nation, we have our own school district 92, goes up to grade 12. We also have our own Nisga'a Valley Health Center, and they operate by locums, both nurses and doctors. And they normally spend like 6 weeks at a time or 2 months. The Nisga'a Family Agreement laid a foundation for prosperity and self-determination, because we actually look at how we want to move forward collectively and how we want to develop. We've come a long way since the treaty was signed. There's a lot of partnerships with the entrepreneurs out there that are based with Nisga'a. So when we look at the stakeholders and the future of the nation, we're looking at the collaboration so that each village isn't competing with each other. But because of our treaty, Nisga'a Listen's government and the 4 Nisga'a villages are 5 separate entities. And that's how it is put from when the treaty was signed off. And when I talk about I talked about the population. When I go to the next couple of slides, I'll talk about the impact benefits agreements, because and I'll list out what kind of benefit agreements that we have with industry. Through Nisga'a Listen's government and through the governing body, it's called Wilpsa Nisga'a, and basically what that means is that for each of the 4 Nisga'a villages, they all have their elected chief and council. For the 3 urban Nisga'a societies, they all have a president and a vice president. And through Nisga'a Listen's government, we have a president that's elected at large. We have a secretary treasurer that's elected at large. We have a chairperson that's elected at large, and we also have a chairperson for the Council of Elders, because we do have our own Council of Elders that guide the governing body because of the culture we follow. And so through that governing body can pass new legislation. It can change bylaws, it can change acts that we have in place. We have binders of our own legislation, but general laws of application apply to the Nisga'a. If it's environmental assessments, DFO, but we work jointly with DFO. We have our own bylaw department, and probably about 6 months ago we hired a retired RCMP officer who did a bunch of work in Alberta, Vancouver, on the East End, United States, and Mexico. And he's retired, and we put the posting out there. So he came in, and he's working with our own Nisga'a bylaw officers. So he's almost got them to a point where they can carry their own firearms, because they also work with the RCMP. And basically the bylaw enforcement officers, they patrol all the way up to our wildlife area that's over and above our Nisga'a lands. And primarily to make sure that for hunters and fishermen on our Nass River, because we have a huge Nass River that right now there's a lot of Chinook and sockeye that are coming up. It's a pretty good fish-bearing river. And if you look at the Skeena River, which is not too far from the Nass River, the Skeena River is about 14 degrees. And the Nass River is only about 6 degrees. So when you look at the returns, because they have a shutdown closure for the Skeena right now, ours, we still go out food fishing. There's a huge difference. So we still invest in our commercial Nisga'a fisheries. Over 2 years, we do have a trust fund called the Commercial Fishery Fund, and we have 13 million that's in there as a trust. But over the years, it built up to about 1.6 million. So we invested into $30,000 as a grant to our commercial fishing boats, primarily all gill net boats, because when you look at the employment and what drives us economically in that fishing industry, although DFO has their own openings, the Nisga'a Fish and Wildlife Department, we also have our own openings, which is over and above. So when we look at the opportunities, a lot of the fishermen are happy. At least they'll make enough money so that they can carry them through the winter. One of the good things that the nation did was allow the private homeowners to gain fee simple status on their property. It's never been done anywhere, but that's what we have. I got, in 2013, I was, I had a meeting with the Global Mail. They interviewed me because I was the first one I attained fee simple status. And I tested it with a bank, and all I needed was a property inspector. And once it went to the bank, they approved a low-interest homeowner line of credit. But the good thing behind it is that you can use that homeowner line of credit based on your equity in your home to access money to invest in a business that you want to get into as an entrepreneur or whatever. A shared vision of sustainable economic prosperity. When I first joined our nation back in 2009, I found out there's probably about 6 or 7 plans on a shelf. I went through them, but they didn't lead to anywhere. There was no actionable items. There was no implementation plan of how you wanted to make your prosperity for your nation work. So I did something a little bit different. I set up a steering committee with all the villages. So we had a good working group. But I also got 5 units over 2 years through the UBC Solitary Schools on students that are writing their thesis. And it worked out really well because these weren't consultants. These were students with fresh minds. And so they weren't really focused on doing their own stuff, so they basically listened to what you wanted to do. So with that, we created an economic framework. So in 2012, our Nisga'a government executive adopted that 10-year framework. And then a year later, we went back to it and we came out of 11 actionable items and objectives. But under each objective, there's probably about 10 actionable items. But each one had its own, when we're looking at there was a estimated budget and who's going to do what, and it had an implementation plan. But I was just talking to a colleague of mine. We're going to go back to it. We're going to revisit it. We should have done it probably a year ago, but we still have time because when we looked at our economic framework and how we wanted to move forward, because everything's industry driven, we have to go back and then we have to make edits, amend, and see what's a priority. And that's how we operate up there. The other, we created something that was never done. We created an alignment with all the villages and corporations because there was always that competition factor. One village wanted to be better than the other village, and it didn't work that way. And then because we're way up in the remote northwest, it is easier that we found out if someone had a gas station or a commercial store, we'll leave it there. If someone had a sawmill, that village will have the sawmill and a cedar shake mill. So it's working well, but we also have our own Nisga'a Employment Skills and Training. It's an ASETS program. We negotiated with Services Canada because of our treaty, and we have it now. We got one that's direct from Ottawa. Because when we're looking at a capacity building for our own people, that's what we use the funding for. And then 2 years ago, I introduced a manager to she works for the province. Her name's Juanita Burcoat, I think. Because I met with her, and then, so there was a fund that was out there. Any First Nations group along that pipeline corridor that is going to be impacted by LNG development. So over a 3-year period, we were successful in getting 2.1 million for capacity building, which is huge, especially for our people that wanted to get into that industry. These are the IBAs that we have in place. The Avanti mine was done a few years ago. They were under construction for about 1.5 years, and because of the market conditions, I guess, for molybdenum, they pulled out of all the construction before they went into mining construction. The KSM Seabridge gold mine, it's further north. It's between Tall Tans and Nisga'a. They're waiting for their final investment, but we do have an impact benefit agreement with them and also member benefits. Pyrium, that's an American-owned company, and it overlaps between the Tall Tan and the Nisga'a. And while they were doing construction over the past 2.5 years, because of our Canadian dollar and the American dollar, during construction they saved themselves about 100 million. It was actually put in the paper. And right now, over the past few months, they recently hired the successful underground mining company. So we have a few people that are working up there. And the Northwest Transmission Line that went through a few years ago in 2010, 70% went through our NAS area. But it is primarily put in place, I guess, when the Liberals put it in place to service all the mining activity that is going to be in further northwestern BC. We have an IBA with BC Hydro. Regional power, it's based above Stewart, BC, if any of you have been up there. We work together with the owners of Regional Power, Dave Carter, I think we get about 44,000 a year on that, just as a revenue sharing agreement. TransCanada LNG. This is also an interesting one because we have an IBA with them, but we also have an agreement to tap into that line. Because if you look at the bottom part of our Nisga'a lands, there's that one piece where TransCanada and Spectra Energy are going to go through. So they did all the underground, the underwater title and all the environmental assessment work and fracking and everything else. So our CEO announced to our Nisga'a Nation Special Assembly last year in May that the reason why we're buying it off the province for 20 million is that we're going to build a 6 billion LNG facility and include it as part of our land base. Our nation started off with probably about 28 investors, but we have it narrowed down to 2. One of them is from England. I can't remember their name, but our leaders have gone over to London, England to meet with them. So there's huge opportunity, but it's just how we're moving forward, I guess, and how we want to develop our economic base for our own people when we're looking north. One of the good write-ups that we have, it's just called Nisga'a Nation is building a strong, healthy and diverse economy and is united in driving sustainable economic development. Nisga'a is working towards increasing citizen quality of life through building local economy, entrepreneurship, self-sufficiency and sustainability. One of past leaders. He used to be our president of our nation. I'm not sure if you know him, Dr. Joe Gosnell. Yeah. He made a huge announcement at our Special Assembly last year. The reason why we want to build our own facility, because we need to look further down the road for our grandchildren, future grandchildren, and our kids. And because when we look at the operations of the Nisga'a Nation, that every year we have to do our provisional budgets. And then on average, when we're servicing the Nisga'a government, the 4 villages, 3 urban Nisga'a societies for programs and services delivery. And then we also provide the budgets for School District 92, the Nisga'a Valley Health Board, and our Woodhouse Nisga'a, which is our public institution. The average budget is about 56 million to operate on an annual basis. So, one thing about the treaty was that when they negotiated the treaty, every 5 years up to 2035, the Nisga'a can go back to the table. And it's called a tripartite finance committee with the federal government, provincial government, and the Nisga'a. And they renegotiate the budget. So any money that we make over and above that, it just goes into our trust fund, which I think is probably about 280 million. So it just keeps building. What are the examples of key objectives of what's actually driving the entrepreneurial and economic activity for the nation? Is create partnerships internally and externally. When we look at that, we're looking at creating, because we have entrepreneurs that are all over BC, that are Nisga'a, and they're actually bidding on some of the contracts for the larger industry that's in our NAS area. Create a coordinated economic business development strategy, and that's just basically bringing all our corporate development corporations together because of Section 154 of our Financial Administration Act. Our governing bodies like the 4 Nisga'a villages and the Nisga'a government, we can't do business, we can support it. And that's the reason why we have to look at our entrepreneurs and our corporate operations. And then we have something that it's called the Business Incubation Center. And it's to support our entrepreneurial activity when we're looking at the different financial opportunities that are out there to help our entrepreneurs or corporations. Right now I kind of work with Tricors and Aboriginal Capital Corporation. It's based out of Prince Rupert. I'm also in contact with the All Nations Trust Company. And currently right now I'm working on an MOU with Futurepreneur Canada and also with the Women's Enterprise Centre out of Vancouver. And we did one project with the New Channel Tribal Council for a project that was based in Victoria. It is in the mall. It is called Rainy Day Blues. It sounds like a police bomb. Yeah. So we based on where Nisga's are living, we'll support them. And the way we support them is that we can provide off our Nisga'a Business Development Fund. We can fund up to 40% of eligible business costs, and as a contribution. And if that business is fully functional for 2 years, it's written off as a grant. And it's only set up that way so that we always found that there was a gap where a lot of entrepreneurs couldn't access other money from other financial institutions. So that's how we structured it. And it is structured in 2008. And then our training and capacity, that's done through our NEST program. When we're looking at investment and infrastructure plans, Nisga's are always looking for investment anyway. But when land comes up for sale in our Nisga'a lands, we bought Nas Camp off the owner, and we also bought the Vetter Lodge operation off a German couple. And we also try to keep track of all the economic activity in our area, including exploratory mines, because I think it's probably about 25 exploratory mines in our area, and it's a huge opportunity for any of our younger Nisga'a workforce to do that, because minimum they can make $400 a day, and it's good money for them for the winter.
Yes, I was wondering if Red Chris Mine is in Nisga'a territory.
Taltan. But they have some Nisga's working up there. Yeah, they, because we were, with that MOU that we did with Taltans, it gave the opportunity for us to see how we can support each other. A lot of them are pretty good friends with us. We have a tourism development strategy. And what I didn't put on there was that over the past 2.5 years, I accessed about $950,000 from grant money just to offset it from our own Nisga'a money as part of our developments. And $541,000 of that actually is coming from Coast Opportunities funds. $103,000 we got approved from the Coast Sustainability Trust. $100,000 we got from Northern Development Initiative Trust. 75 was from INAC, and another few thousand from Destination BC, because what we invested in was our infrastructure for tourism. We have new signage up and down our territory. We pumped in we put in a 2.2 kilometer distribution line into the Vetter Lodge operations because it was off the grid. We redid a 60-foot and a 40-foot bridge for access to Vetter Lodge. We did all the mechanical, plumbing, electrical, and construction upgrades. So we're just finishing off the final pieces. And once we do that, then we just got to sign an MOU off for Nisga'a Pacific Ventures Limited. But we also, in July, August, we signed off a contract with a Japanese guy out of Squamish, in between Whistler and Vancouver. His name is Mike Sato. He develops hot springs. So we've done 50% of our hot spring development we did last fall. But the final phase is that we're going to finish it off with a Japanese guy this July, August. We're putting in 2 more hot tubs, and then we're going to keep the existing pool that's in there. There's other hot spots up in the hillside, but we haven't touched them. Because it's one of the sites, it's not really a recreational site. It's a protected site that we have in our land base. It's a historical site. But we had some barriers on that project because prior to the treaty, everybody had, a lot of the older people had trap lines. And that hot spring site was actually a trap line to one of our elders down in our village that sits below us. Canyon City, but it's now called Goodwin Silk. But over time, they accepted it because before you had to go up a big steep hill climb and come down, but we pulled in boardwalks all the way along for easy access, especially for people that are handicapped and stuff like that. We have a lot of tourists that go there. Even in December, January, when our temperature was -18, we had people coming up from Tahlequah, Rupert, Terrace, just going to the site and walking in there.
How warm is the water?
That one pool, because we have to put in cold water into it, but if you don't use it, it's going to go up to 40. And the one that's up above is probably 44. Yeah. And there's a couple more that are in between along that creek. Yeah. Yeah, it's that one huge hillside. Also, what we did was part of our tourism strategy. We have a tourism consortium or partnership with Regional District Kitimat's Keen out of the north, and then Commodity Tourism out of Terrace, District of Stewart for the north, and City of Terrace. The only reason why we did that was so that we can support each other on tourism development. And then we also have a video that, it's actually on my computer, but that video was funded by Destination BC. And the company that did it was Brandon Thompson out of Vancouver. It's actually a really nice video. This is some of the stuff that we invested in over through our Nisga'a Business Development Fund. And these projects, like the fitness center on there, it's based out of Prince Rupert. That smoker business, it's a commercial smoker, it's based out of Prince Rupert. Nass Valley Tours has got a contract with BC Parks up our Nass Valley. Nass Valley Wild Medicine is a partnership between an RN nurse and a Nisga'a lady. They go all over northern BC, and then they create their own medicines, their ointments and everything else, and their teas. Sport fishing and tours, we supported out of a village, it used to be called Kincolith, but it's based right at the mouth of the Nass River and the ocean. Which is good because when you go to the mouth there, a lot of people get a lot of halibut there, lingcod and Dungeness crab, and a different other species. The gas bar convenience store is based in Ianch. The logging truck business is based out of Rupert. Restaurant and fast food outlets. We have one in Gingolth. It's called You See Food, You Eat It, but her main menu is right out of the ocean. Yeah, so then we have one that's based in Rosswood. We just funded him last year on his business. And then he went to the Thrive North Challenge in Prince Rupert through Futurepreneur Canada. And he was a recipient of a $10,000 grant because he was in competition down there. The daycare business is based in Pitt Meadows. And we also have a home-based hair salon in Coquitlam that we funded. And I don't know if I can play the video. If it works. Not there? Okay, it's okay. No worries. A lot of the stuff I talked about already, everything has to do with our economic framework and how we support economic activity in the rural sector up northwestern British Columbia. And then a lot of the stuff you can find on our website. It's just called nisgaanation.ca. And you can also find our tourism brochure. It's on our website, Nisga'a Tourism. If you just Google that site, and then it should pop up it's our new auditory brochure. And so the Nisga'a Nation is blessed with abundant natural resources and a naturally resourceful people. Now that our land is secure under the Nisga'a Final Agreement, Nisga'a government and Nisga'a people are busy building capacity, exploring opportunities, and developing our economy for long-term sustainability. The Nisga'a economy, the Nisga'a Nation is a fully integrated part of the Northwest British Columbia's economy. We do a lot of supports. We support business. Majority, we support business in Terrace. That's where a lot of our people shop. We have an abundant water supply, fresh water. We have safe road access. Everything's paved up there. We have our own Nisga'a communications, and we have our own high-speed fiber, which came up through that northwest transmission line. So we have from small local businesses initiatives to international partnerships. Nisga'a government actively supports and facilitates new initiatives and improve employment opportunities in the Nass Valley. Open for business through the Nisga'a Final Agreement. Nisga'a lands and resources are secure. With agreement comes certainty. With certainty comes the confidence to move forward. The Nisga'a Nation has over 2,000 square kilometres of land, which I talked about. So when we're looking at new possibilities, partnerships, and ideas, we're looking at secure lands, mature forest, thriving fishery, proactive government, independent commercial companies, and entrepreneurs. But the Nisga'a Nation is also open for business. They look at outside investment. And then that way, at least when we look at outside investment, we can look at the how we can make our own money work. We're also talking about maybe buying business outside of our territory in a city or town site, because we found out that in Prince Rupert, Kitkatla has some businesses they bought up in Prince Rupert. Same with Lacqua Lambs, which is Port Simpson. So the one thing that's really different about us is that we're not really a real estate rich. We're more industry, mineral rich, versus our other groups like Sabertooth in North Van, or Squamish Nation, or Musqueam Nation, or Tawasin Nation, or West Bank, just outside here, or Sawyers, or Penticton Indian Band, because Penticton's growing, so they need to have a look at some of their outside lands. But yeah, it's too bad my video didn't show. Actually, it's actually pretty good. yeah. But anyways, that's my report on Nisga'a Nation, where I'm from, what we do. We're really proactive. We continuously change the legislation. The reason why we change the legislation for our own lands is so that we can make it fit to whatever the opportunities are, based on how we're moving forward with our economic prosperity for our nation. Thank you.